Okay, so today I'm going to be explaining how a Lure Jemison Dipsy Diver works. As you can see, I have one here. Um, I use these for trolling. I like to troll them with live baits behind them off of this lead here on the back end here. What you'd want to do is you start with your lure way back here or live bait. Lead length of your, whatever your preference is. I like a pretty decent lead length, sometimes excess of 40, 50 foot. But depending on the situations, what I'm fishing for, types of bait I'm using, weights of the bait, currents, things like that, I'll, one way or the other, I'll make them longer, I'll make them shorter. Um, but anyways, as far as how this works here, like I said, you got your lead length here going to your bait off the back. The front half here, this is your pin. This is what sets the Dipsy Diver and allows it to trip when you do receive a bite. So depending on what you're fishing for, you want this to be, and your speed, you want this to have different weights to trip by. I like to keep them a little tighter. I tend to troll a little faster with them, especially when I'm using saltwater application. But one key component to setting these things that people tend to miss a lot is you don't want to set them doing one of those deals if you have the jaws here set on a tighter setting. Reason is, this little piece of metal right here, this pin, will bend. If you see one that's been around a while, you'll see this thing is pretty mangled up. Looks like it's, been through hell and back. What I like to do when I'm setting them, especially for saltwater, like I said, when I'm running them real tight, running them fast, is I'll push, towards the middle of it and on the sides, so my fingers are more centrally located versus on the outsides. And it'll just help keep it from bending on you. Help just save the lifetime of the pin. Obviously, when you're running the jaws looser because you're running slower trolling wise, it's not as important because there's not nearly as much pressure to pop it in and out. Then as far as the bottom goes here, as you've noticed, I'm sure, there's a weight that swivels back and forth, left to right or port to starboard as you'd call it on a boat. Right there, as you can see, that's zero or dead center. So what that'll do is, if you set the pin, simulate it hanging in the water, it'll hang, pretty well straight, just leaning down into the water, digging in a little bit. Now, if you want to angle it out one way or the other, you could spin it, say, this way on multiple different settings. As you can see, there's different numbers, 1, 2, 3, and on the halves. This would bring it out to the port side of the boat. As you can see, it's got a bit of a lean to it now when it hangs off of your main line coming from your rod, which is where my finger's going here to this swivel. This would go directly to your rod tip, and as I said before, here would be going to your bait. Or you can swing them to the other side, like so, over here on the starboard side on a 3, or a 1, 2, 2.5, whatever you want to run it on. And now you can see it's pivoting off to the opposite side. So it's just depending on if you're running it off one side or the other or right down the center, which when I'm running live baits, trying to dig something up deep, that's my favorite way to run them, just like that. Run them anywhere between 2 and 4 knots with a nice long lead off the back of it. Running them, 150, 200 foot of line out of the rod tip going to the Dipsy Diver. And these things will dig down deep. This is an 001, they call it. It's a 3.25 or 3.25 inch disc with just a traditional size ring that comes on them. These rings do pop off. Just be kind of a little gentle with them. It is just plastic. It will break. Goes right back on. Just underneath the swivel there. And then just lean it right over the top on that slit where it's made and just pops right in. And it'll stay on there for you, no problem. But, other than that, that's pretty much how they work. The rest of it's just trial and error, learning what they can and cannot do. Like I said, maximum speed of these guys, generally about 4 knots. Depending on your, if you're fishing in the ocean with or in the Gulf, depending on your tides and the water current, things like that, how fast everything's moving compared to the boat. Your down speed is what you want to try and figure out. If you're having tendency of it continue to pop, even though it says in your machine that you're going a lot slower, maybe the water's going faster than you think it is, maybe you're going against the current, or vice versa. It's, you're getting false bites, you're not tripping the rig when you do get a bite. Maybe you're going too slow going with the water. Like I said, as far as everything else I've explained here, the rest of it's just trial and error, learning how to fish these things. They are fun. They're awesome tools, and I've really enjoyed fishing with them. I've caught a lot of nice fish on them.